In this video, we'll be going over Chapter 7, Section 3, Monopolistic Competition and Oligopoly. By the time we're done with Section 3, you should be able to tell the difference between perfect competition, monopolistic competition, and an oligopoly, and know how the prices work in these different types of market structures. So these are the last two market structures that we'll be going over. We've gone over perfect competition, we've looked at monopoly, and now we're looking at the two last market structures, monopolistic competition and oligopoly. So what is definition for monopolistic competition? It's market structure. Many companies sell products that are similar but not identical. So I always like to refer to a pair of jeans on this one. There's so many different brands that are out there for jeans, and they all try to make their product, their pair of jeans, different than the rest. So they may be faded, they may have additional accessories, jewelry, loops, hooks, logos. They may be ripped for whatever reason. They try to make it as different as possible to make their product superior to the rest. But by the end of the day, it is still just a pair of jeans, and they're just trying to make it different than the rest. So when we talk about a monopolistic competition, we're talking about products that are similar but not identical. Shoes, pens, things that are very close but not identical. So what are the characteristics of a monopolistic competition market structure? Well, you're going to have many firms. So with a perfect competition, you'll have lots of firms, but with this one, you have many. Variety of goods, there's some, they're not identical. Barriers to entry are still very low. It's not as difficult to get into one of these firms as would be for others. So barriers to entry would be low, and then control over price is very low as well. Because if one jean company puts the price too high, it becomes elastic and people will look for a substitute. So there is some price named by brands usually, but they don't have complete control over prices. So they try to make themselves differentiate from other companies that are out there. So differentiation, making a product different from others, but similar products. How to know if this is a monopolistic competition or not? They need to have some control over price and distinguish from others, and making difference the key. Oftentimes, if you go down, let's say you're looking for a pen, and you go down the pen aisle at a store, there's going to be different types of packaging, colors, things like 25% more ink, maybe it has a rubber grip on it, whatever it might be. They just try to exaggerate. They could say something like, this pen is guaranteed to write. Well, we'd hope so because it is a pen. But looking just for things for the color, the grip, the point even on the pen, they just try to do to make it as different as possible to make their brand seem more valuable than others. So some control, distinguish from others, difference is the key when it comes to monopolistic competition. If we do a side-by-side comparison of the two, we'd find that perfect competition and monopolistic competition is quite similar when it comes to this. The big difference is that the variety of goods is some, unlike perfect competition where apples, oranges are identical. Barriers to entry is low, and there is some control over price when it comes to this. So these are companies that really push advertising to really distinguish this. Versus a monopoly wouldn't have to do that as much because there is no competition for them, making it different. So we have the prices, the output, the profits, and the production costs and variety. So if we're doing a step-by-step process to figure out where monopolistic competition would fit, it would go from perfect competition, moving to monopolistic competition, and then monopoly. So it's kind of in the middle. So there are superior brands that are out there for some monopolistic competition products, but at the same time, they're not quite a monopoly because there is close substitutes for that. So the price, output, and profits are generally the same, but they're just looking for different angles to make the most amount of profit when it comes to this, this type of products that are out there. So what do they focus on to try to make their products different? Well, they're looking for ways to attract the customer based on their style, service, or location, but not necessarily lower price, because they know that price, they really don't have much control over it. So things they try to do: physical characteristics. Maybe it's the size, color, shape, texture, maybe the taste. They try to make things just enough different for this. So some examples would be pens, shoes, ice cream, jeans, shampoo, fast food restaurants. I mean, it's just the list is endless when it comes to this. I mean, just watching fast food restaurant commercials, they just try to make things so distinct that they're superior from others. So that's definitely the key there. Here are the characteristics. So first one, physical characteristics. That's all the packaging you see in the store. So next time you walk through the store, even if you're buying just paper, I mean, there's competition with that. Location is another big piece for this non-price competition. So this is why gas stations, theaters, grocery stores will purposely put their stores in different locations to make themselves more convenient to others, but at the same time want to be in a location where people are going to go. So this is why you wouldn't find a Target out in the middle of nowhere. It just wouldn't make any sense for their competition for this. Service level is huge. If we were to think of a fast food restaurant, probably a couple of them that are atop of the chain of service level, we'd probably think of somewhere like Culver's or Chick-fil-A. I actually just heard on the radio this morning that Chick-fil-A is the best ranked service for a fast food industry out there. And they push that culture on purpose. They try to make people feel important enough that they matter and their order is important to everyone. Now, if we were to think of, if I was to ask what fast food restaurants would you say that don't have very good service, generally the most two popular responses that I get is Taco Bell and Burger King. You're lucky that if they say hi to you, if you go through there. I've had experiences going through different places, not just these two, but just different restaurants when I order, and then I go through the drive-through, they open up the window, and the person just puts their hand out. And sometimes I have a little fun with it and purposely just sit there until they tell me what I need to do. I know what I need to do, but at the same time, the service level is important when it comes to this. So this is something that Chick-fil-A can brag about when it comes to that. Culver's has the same culture. And then advertising, image, and status. The tag on the pair of jeans or whatever it might be. It's a whole status symbol that is there too. And in reality, there's probably not much difference when it comes to some of these products. But society, economics just puts special emphasis on some of these things to make it more important than others. There's a whole culture of people that own a Mac versus a PC computer. That it's just a different culture when it comes to things like this. So, non-price competition that is there. This is all for monopolistic competition. We will not be doing this activity today. Maybe another time if we have time. Oligopoly. Oligopoly is the second and the last, or is the fourth market structure that we'll be looking at. And here are the characteristics. There are very few firms. There is some variety of goods. Barriers are very high, and they do have some control over prices. So usually in order to have an oligopoly, there's only going to be a few individuals, few groups that dominate the market. So 70 to 80% of this. So it is a step right below a monopoly. So monopoly is 1, oligopoly would probably be 3 or 4 that really seem to dominate the market structure. when it comes to this. So barriers to entry, if you wanted to start, or if we ask the question, name a soda drink that is not under Coke or Pepsi, it'd be probably very difficult to do. We'd probably come up with one or two, but other than that, it'd probably be very difficult to do. The soda industry is an oligopoly when it comes to this. Barriers to entry, usually there's going to be very high technology. Licensing and permits is probably going to be difficult to obtain and learn about. The economy of scale, like we looked at monopoly, just continues to fall as more and more consumers use the product, and there's high startup cost. So if you wanted to start your own soda company, it would be very difficult to do. It'd be very high startup costs. You'd have to have a special formula and equipment and licensing. And then by the time you do all that, to get into an actual store, that space is already limited, it'd be very difficult to do something like that. The airline industry is an example of this. Believe it or not, the cooler business, cell phone companies, oil, gas, pharmaceuticals, and cable companies. I mean, these are all oligopolies that are out there. And that's why some of these products are just so expensive, because it's dominated by a few companies. Now, does the prices need to be that high? Probably not. They probably don't. But since there's so many few in that market for that product, they can charge whatever they want. So, cooperation and collusion. So oftentimes what we find is price leadership when it comes to this. So this is what we're referring to. So let's say Coke and Pepsi are both selling their cans of pop at $1 each. So let's say that Coke wants to have the upper hand in this, so maybe they'll lower the cost by 5 cents. By 5 cents for their can of pop. So now they have 95 cents versus $1. Well, then in retaliation, Pepsi might go 93 cents. And then before we know it, we have this price war that is going on, going back and forth. As mentioned, a gasoline company would be doing this too. So two gas stations right across the street from each other, generally they're going to go 1 cent, 2 cent difference. When I commute into work, there is a small little gas station called Coates Corner down where I live, and it's generally very cheap. And down the road from that, there's another bigger chain gas station that purposely installed a sign right by this other gas station to create a price war. And so we can see the digital price for this versus having the price for the other one for this little tiny gas station that is there. So even some of the bigger chains try to compete with this. And then we have something called the collusion. This is an illegal agreement among firms to divide the market, set prices, or limit production. So let's say that Coca-Cola Corporation and Pepsi come together to meet, and they form this agreement that, hey, instead of us having this price war, we're doing 95, you do 93, we'll do 90 cents. Let's just set the price at $1, and you can just divide the market up, the demographics of you get maybe the East Coast, we'll get the West Coast, and we have this price fix. So they will purposely set the price and not lower it. Now, often a collusion doesn't last because, especially in a free market industry, the profit motive is going to kick in and, okay, we made this agreement, now all of a sudden okay, we're just going to lower it 2 cents or 3 cents, and then we go back into a price war. But collusions are illegal. Let's say the cell phone companies do the same thing. They all decide to sell their iPhone 7 for this price. They could have an agreement, but these are considered illegal in the U.S. Cheating generally happens when it comes to competition in this, and they don't seem to last very long. So a price war and a collusion, and then the next step would be a cartel. Now, we always think of the drug cartels when it comes to this, but there are other cartels that are out there that exist. Cartels are also illegal in the United States. So if you look at the list of countries that are part of OPEC, OPEC is These are the tycoons that own most of the oil industry on the planet. As you can see here, OPEC comes together and they form a cartel and really get to decide on how much they would be selling the gasoline for. So that's why for years the United States has relied so much on OPEC for these prices. And as a result, they can charge higher prices. They create a cartel. So this is corporation collusion when it comes to this. Cartels, same thing with a drug cartel. We would find that they divide it up into territories, and as long as you stay in your territory, there's no issue. But as soon as you cross that, then there's conflict and competition exists. And that's with a drug cartel, but businesses are the same way when they form a cartel when it comes to this. This is the end of this section about monopolistic competition and oligopolies.